So today we're going to talk about what it feels like to be in the dating marketplace when you're over 50, because quite frankly, to some degree, I think we feel invisible. And what I mean by we feel invisible is that there's a lot of great content in the dating sphere of dating advice and relationship advice. And yet many of it's designed to really address what it's like to be in your 20s and 30s, in that pre-baby making years. And what I feel like is missing in so many, listen, I watch Jay Shetty, I watch Lewis Howes, I watch Matthew Hussey, I watch Chris Williamson, I watch Julian Turecki, I watch so many. I mean, the list goes on and on of people I watch talking about relationships. And yet, what isn't really discussed for our demographic, for this over 40, over 50 demographic, and what's particular about this demographic is that roughly, and I'm going to say this is anecdotally speaking, roughly 75% of people over 40 who are in the dating market, well, let me backtrack, over 45 in the dating marketplace are most likely divorced. And with divorce comes a whole host of unique emotional experiences that really can't be, equated to what it's like when you're in the search for the father of your children or the mother of your children, so to speak, because making babies and raising a family is a whole different dynamic than those of us in midlife. Those of us in midlife, many of us already have children. And for those of us that are in our 50s or even 60s, we were raised with the Brady Bunch approach of how to blend families, which is so far from the truth. Okay. And first you had a young widower, and we find out later that Carol Brady is divorced. And so they didn't have contentious ex-spouses to deal with. Carol Brady didn't have to work. She had a live-in nanny, and mind you, their greatest challenge was to incorporate 6 children into 2 bedrooms and 1 bathroom, and it was a comedy. See, that's not what we're living in. We are not living in a comedy of errors. We are living in real life problems. First off, just the unraveling of the tapestry of a marriage is complicated to begin with. And then if you do have children, you oftentimes might have a contentious relationship with an ex-spouse that actually has ripple effects in your dating sphere for those of us who are in our 40s and 50s. And so that's just like one of the first things to address. Okay. The other thing that rarely do I hear in the podcast world on a lot of relationship coaches, I don't hear, and again, I consume a lot of people. Stefan Speaks is another one who I totally admire and respect. I watch his content frequently. And yet what I don't hear addressed is the childhood wounds and adult traumas that face us and plague us, if you will, in the dating marketplace. There isn't any discussion on, divorce, alimony, child support, visitation rights, family court, erectile dysfunction, women going through menopause, elderly parents in assisted living facilities, all of the, and then children that we might have that might be plagued with emotional problems and how that affects our dating dynamic for those of us in midlife. And there isn't any advice out there. And I consume a lot of content out there to kind of formulate my perceptions. And this is why I talk to this demographic in a unique way, is because we are dealing with stuff that can't be associated for that younger demographic who's in that getting married, making babies phase of their life. We are dealing, and then let's not to mention, the older we get, the more set we are in our ways. And yet we are told that we must absolutely, to some degree, compromise for a relationship. And yet at the same time, we're told never to lower our standards or not compromise in relationships. So we're in this tug of war of advice out there. We're told not to compromise our standards. And at the same time, we're told that we absolutely must accommodate the opposite sex if you ever want to have success in a relationship. So this is one of the reasons why, and I'm doing this broadcast today because one of the things I want to curate. So tomorrow night, I'm doing a live event called Ditch the Dating Apps, Meet Organically, Meet in Person. But I have a deeper reason of why I want to do this. Let me say, okay, I didn't even give you the reason why I'm doing it versus the deeper reason why I'm doing it. So first, I want to cultivate a regular meeting place where we don't have to rely on our devices for connection. Let me just say this, ever since dating apps were invented, it has bastardized the process of meeting people, and it has marginalized a person to just a swipe. Now, in all fairness, the apathy and the ignorance and the stupidity of human beings that use these devices is ridiculously rampant. And what I mean mostly is apathy. Somehow you can curate a crappy dating profile and expect magical results. And I just think that's the ignorance and stupidity of human beings, but I don't want to go down that road. The challenge is meeting in this venue. While it yields results on occasional basis, it can be emotionally devastating to go from one person to the next, to the next, to the next. And just even a simple hi that doesn't get returned can have emotional ramifications on an individual. And then meeting people in the dating marketplace and having it go nowhere can have ramifications. Do you know none of my contemporaries are talking about the emotional effects of going on repetitive dates and how that can affect us emotionally? Nobody's discussing this. It really saddens me. And some of them, it's like, it just has a masculine approach to it. Just go on a single date a week. And, in 52 weeks, you're going to meet the love of your life. Yeah, that's kind of like a bulldoze way of approaching it. That's a telemarketing way of approaching it. And yet, statistically speaking, even those relationships don't work out in the long run. I think so coming back to why I want to do this event, I want to put people in a room together. So the first hour of the presentation is me sharing my perspectives, particularly for those of us in midlife. And I always say midlife is after baby making years and before retirement. And yet the event is open to all, but the main deeper reason why I want to do this is cultivate people in a room having real discussions about the challenges we face. And see, I have a belief that when we can connect at a heart-centered level, when we can connect at a place of really meeting each other in that organic, in-person way and just connecting with another human being, we don't see them as their stats on a dating profile. The stats of their height, their stats of their income, their stats of their body type, and we get to maybe spend time with a human being at a heart-centered level. And through this heart-centered level, we might find that we have more in common than we have less in common. Sure, we live in a very divided society, particularly here in the United States. It's the red and the blue and the, this and the that. And yet and certainly we have to understand that we feel safer with people who share our values. We feel safer with someone whose lifestyle is compatible with ours. But more importantly, we feel safer when someone has the emotional maturity to lean into a relationship beyond the surface, beyond the transactional level. And so part of the reason why I'm even recording this right now is I want to encourage. I want you to make a request of every person you watch a podcast for, every video you watch. If you're in that demographic of the over 45, the 50, the 55, the 60 plus demographic, make requests to address the challenges that we're faced with. Because quite frankly, it's not discussed, and I don't believe you can apply advice that's designed for somebody in their 20s and 30s and apply it for those of us in our 40s, 50s, 60s, and even 70s. Yes, we have some basal base type of imprinting from cave person days, but we have to recognize that there's so much more than the provider, protector, and the nurturer and the gatherer aspects of a relationship. There's so much more complexity to deal with. And as I said earlier in this broadcast, childhood wounds and adult traumas, it's like everybody has one, and it's like a thumbprint. Everyone is unique to themselves. We can't apply generalized advice for an individual circumstances because not only do they have the wound, and by the way, when I say childhood wounds, I'm not talking about, you know, off the charts abuse. I'm talking about just, I was bullied as a kid growing up by even a teacher. I was bullied to some degree. Okay. My parents had no clue how to navigate my ADD growing up. And I think they're good people. I'm talking about garden variety childhood wounds of certainly for those that have had significant childhood wounds. Again, granted, that certainly might require some deeper therapy, but that's just the childhood wounds. What about the wound of a divorce? What about the wounds that occur when we go from one relationship to the next What about the wounds that occur from, messaging someone and then having them disappear? And to trivialize these wounds to saying, oh, just tough it out. You just need to have thick skin. I'm tired of having thick skin. I recognize, I'm serious. I'm tired of having thick skin. Maybe it's because, I'm a senior citizen to some degree. Maybe when I was younger, I had to toughen it out, but I want to be vulnerable. I want to be authentic. I want to be transparent with everybody that I speak to in my life. And I don't want to have to cultivate thick skin to navigate this dating marketplace. And so I want to have conversations to talk about how can we do a better job very early on to determine genuine compatibility? Like I said before, do we share the same values? Are our lifestyles blendable? Do we in our lifestyles, do we have a shared vision for what we see in our future? And most importantly, that emotional maturity that leads to a healthy, happy relationship. And that's the conversation I have. And I'm here to say, for those of us in our 50s, we are invisible in the dating marketplace for advice. And my goal is to draw more attention to this conversation because it is sorely needed. Hey, look, the Golden Bachelor came out and there's going to be a Golden Bachelorette. But the truth is, they don't identify the problems. That's just a show to generate ratings. They're not discussing. And by the way, there were 16 women, 15 of them went home with nobody. Okay, that's in the Golden Bachelor. And the Golden Bachelorette, it's going to be the same. 15 guys that go home with nobody. I don't know that sets the best example. If we start talking about the real challenges we're faced with midlife, maybe we can come closer together. And that's my hope. And that's why I'm doing Ditch the Dating Apps, Meet Organically. My goal is to do this on a regular basis. I would love your support. Help me make this happen. I live in Los Angeles. It's going to be in Playa Vista, which is right next to Marina del Rey. If you can make it, great. I'd love to say hi to you. And if you can't make it, that's fine too. But I'm hoping that this conversation merely sparks that request to talk about the challenges we face in midlife instead of burying it under the rug like many people do. And certainly a lot of my younger contemporaries just don't get it the way we get it. You know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about. Those of us who are in this demographic, we get it. And just to have this cavalier attitude that is easy is, quite frankly, in my book, a crock of shit. Anyways, I hope you had value in this. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. Give me a like. Let me know you appreciate this. I'd certainly would appreciate that. Also, if you have something to share with me, hey, reach out to me, whether it's my Instagram, whether it's my Facebook, whether it's through my website. I'd love to connect with you and share with you more. And I'm going to wrap up this video as I always do. First off, give myself a big, gigantic Jonathan Barrick of self-love. I'm going to reach into the camera and give you a hug of love, if that's okay. I'm going to ask you to turn to someone, a pet, a teddy bear, a pillow, and give it or them a hug of love, because hugs are a great source of love. And let's face it, we could all use more love in our lives. Thanks a bunch. Bye-bye now. Bye-bye. Bye.